Good morning, friends. Thank you so much for joining us on this training webinar this morning. I'm Carol Bruce. I'm the Texas Annual Conference Treasurer, and Robert Besser, who's currently our Church Leadership Director, and also Rochelle Sebron, our in-house expert on end-of-year reporting, who will be our presenter today, have joined me to welcome you this morning. We're so grateful for all of you pastors and finance and business managers and administrators who've joined us to learn this important work. If you are brand new to this work, I'll explain. Maybe somebody just told you, you need to get on this webinar. I'll explain why we're here at a very high level. So each year in January, next year it'll be January 10th and or 11th, depending on what your district chooses. Each church is asked to report on a number of statistics. Which seems very boring, but it is important not only to the general church who owns the statistics, but also to us as the annual conference. In fact, some of this reporting sets your apportionments, so they are important, and we're very grateful for your willingness to take the time to complete them. They're due on January 10th and 11th next year, but as Rochelle will explain, you can start working on them earlier. In the past, the General Council of Finance and Administration, used Ezra as the platform for this data. Many of you are very familiar with Ezra. This year, they're moving to Brick River platform, and there is a new name for the end of year reporting, a new acronym for us to learn, ACS, or AC Stats, standing for Annual Conference Statistics. And we from our perspective, it's a very good platform. It's very simple. Ezra was too. It's very similar to Ezra. And those of you who have experience with it, I think will pick it up right away. But Rochelle is going to answer all your questions, walk you through everything so you know what you're doing. And you can get that done before January 10th and 11th of next year. A few logistics for our meeting. This is a webinar, not Zoom, so we're sorry we can't see your faces. That would warm our hearts. But we know that you're here and we want to answer your questions. So as the webinar proceeds, Rochelle will pause at the end of each section and ask if there are any questions. And she'll quit sharing her screen so that we can see you, at least you can see our faces. And then if you have questions throughout the webinar at any time, please go ahead and write those in the Q&A. Chat is the water cooler for the webinar. So if you want to talk with each other or send greetings or ask for general questions, feel free to put those in chat. But if you would put your questions in Q&A, and we'll be happy to answer those. We expect this to take 2 hours or less. If it's getting long, we'll take a break. If not, we'll plan to plow right through to use your time wisely. And again, thank you for being here. Before we begin, I'm going to ask Robert to pray for us. But first, I want to tell you why he's hosting the webinar with me and Rochelle. Robert is in our church leadership, our Center for Leadership Formation now. But as many of you know, I'm retiring December 31st of this year. And Robert has been nominated by our Council on Finance Administration as your new treasurer. He will be elected December 3rd at the special session of annual conference as the interim treasurer. And so during this season, we're busily training him. We're dragging him to all of our trainings and meetings this fall, and we're getting him ready for that new role. And he'll be treasurer and benefits officer and direct the Center of Connectional Resources. So we're grateful he is with us this morning. He's double booked. He also has an event in his current job, so he'll be disappearing and coming back off and on during this event, and that's okay. But I did want to introduce him to you, give him the opportunity to give his greetings, and then Robert, would you pray for us as we begin this holy work this morning?
I'm glad to welcome everyone, and I look forward to working with you as well beginning in January. Shall we pray? Well, we are thankful for the gathering this morning and for the experiences of learning this new program and this new platform and the ministry that all of these numbers represent. We're thankful, Lord, for leaders and administrators and clergy and lay people who are all work together to serve your kingdom These numbers represent so much more than just numbers. They represent hearts and ministry and so many places throughout our annual conference in which people's lives have been changed because of ministries working together. We're thankful indeed, Lord, for those who are able to be here this morning and who are working together to make a difference in our respective neighborhoods and communities. We're also thankful for Carol and for her ministry with us these years, and pray her blessings with her family as she moves into retirement beginning in January. For Rochelle and for her diligence and her work in all of this, we are indeed thankful. Be with us now in this time of training together. It's in Christ's holy name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Robert. And now Rochelle Sebrin, our staff accountant, the resident expert on the subject, will train you well. And again, we'll be pausing to answer questions. So put those in the Q&A. Thank you. It's all yours, Rochelle.
All right. Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Robert, as well. Again, I echo Carol and Robert in welcoming you to this year's statistical reporting training session as we navigate a new territory. But as Carol said, I think that we're going to be very pleased with the platform that we have now. It is very user friendly. So we'll get into the nuts and bolts of that in a minute, but again, welcome. I will go ahead and we will go ahead and get started. You will see on my screen, you will see important dates. We'll start out with important dates because we always want to make sure that we're aware of what we're getting into before we get into it. So report dates are for the 2022 reporting year is Tuesday, January 10th and or Wednesday, January 11th. You want to check with your respective district office and see when they are scheduling their report date for your district. So if the district administrative assistant should be sending out some information, giving that information out to their local churches within their district. Beginning on Tuesday, November 1st, we will open the annual conference stats system for you to start reporting. You'll hear us refer to it as ACS or AC stats commonly, as it has been, as we have been trained to say it that way, AC stats or ACS. But again, beginning Tuesday, November 1st, the platform will be open and available for all churches to start reporting. We have had questions about churches that may be disaffiliating, that they have to submit a report. And yes, we are asking that the churches do submit a final report. So that's why we're opening up the platform earlier than we have in previous years. All of the 2022 contributions are due in our office by January 11th of 2023. And in the past, you may have noticed that we would stop, the conference office would stop receiving your apportionments mid-December, and then you would start paying your district offices, your conference apportionments. But last year was the first year that we did not do that. You continue to pay the annual conference same way you do throughout the year. You can either send it to the PO box in Dallas, which is our lockbox with our bank, or you could pay online. And a lot of churches, I want to applaud a lot of churches who did sign up for the online payment platform. It's a very user-friendly platform. And I'm hoping that more churches will look into getting into utilizing that service. It is at no cost to the local church. The expense for that is absorbed by the annual conference. So again, all contributions are due by January 11th of 2023. So if you prefer to mail a check, please allow at least 5 to 7 business days for that check to get to us. So that means you would need to mail it out prior to prior to at least 5 to 7 business days prior to January 11 to ensure that we'll receive it within ample amount of time. If you prefer to do or want to try the online payment link, please send an email to financials, that's financials@txcumc.org. And we will get that link to you or get your church set up with the online portal. Some more important information regarding when you will receive your statements. We will start, we do apologize. We've have had an issue with our statements being emailed out to our churches for the past 2 months. Unfortunately, we are working with our database program to try to restore that service, and we're hoping that will be restored within the next week so we can start resuming emailing out the statements to the local churches. But the statement dates that you will see, because we would need to import your apportionment payment information into the AC Stats platform for November 1st. So when you get into the system, the actual figures that you will see in your report will be through actually September 30th until we're able to update that information. So statement dates, I see an error, but statement dates that we will start with the more current information will begin Thursday, November 3rd in 2022, not 2021. And that will reflect receipts that we've received through October 31st. The second upload to the AC Stats system we would do to have your apportionments and district apportionments reflect as you have sent them in will be Friday, December 2nd of 2022. And then that will reflect all receipts received through November 30th. And then we will have another upload right before report day. And that's going to be on Tuesday, January 9th of 2023. And that will reflect all receipts that we've received through December 31st. And then we'll do our work for report day, January 10th and 11th. And then we'll get those final statements out to all of the churches by Tuesday, January 24th of 2023. And that was the one that we have with our auditor's information on it. So if there are any discrepancies, please review your statements now so we can make those necessary corrections and get that information into the reporting system prior to the final statements going out January 24th. I will go ahead and pause right here so that if anybody has any questions or anything, we can you can ask them.
Yes, Rochelle, we do have a couple of questions. If I could ask you those right now. First of all, several people have asked, this webinar is being recorded. Is going to be available to review later online?
Yes, we are recording this webinar, and in speaking to our communications, they will have it available on our website with some other information, document information on by October 27th.
Great. Several people also ask, our church may be disaffiliating. Are disaffiliating churches required to complete end of year reports? I think the answer is yes, but I wanted them to hear that from you.
Yes, we are asking that our churches that are disaffiliating, that they do complete a report. And then there is a special area that you would withdraw your members. And I will, when we get into the report, I will show you that area as well, or identify that area.
Great. And two more questions, Rochelle. One is, I think there's another error on the important dates screen. One person noticed that financials@txcumc.org is misspelled. Is that?
Yeah, as I was spelling it out, I noticed that. I was like, oh my gosh. So yes, it's financials, FINANCILS.
Thank you. I apologize. So correctly spelled, the email is correctly spelled. It's just that we made a typo when we were creating the screen. Thank you for
Yeah.
noticing, friends. Hey, we just wanted to see if y'all were paying attention. You know, here's a great question. If this person asked, if we have been paying apportionments online through Shelby, will we automatically be moved to AC Stats, or do we have to contact the treasurer's office?
No, if you've been paying them online through Shelby, then when I made reference to those important dates so we can upload your information, we are going to do that prior to the reporting season starting, or the prior to you having access to the AC Stats platform.
And one more question at this point, Rochelle, will the handouts or PowerPoint from this presentation be made available later?
Yes, that's going to be available when the video is available. So on October 27th, all of that information will be available. We'll have not only login information, a little quick reference sheet, as well as the worship attendance protocol information. So those items will be available along with some other documents that may be helpful for you in your reporting.
Okay, super. I think that's all we have right now.
Okay, well, we will continue on. Bear with me for one moment. Okay, so now we'll get into how you can access the AC Stats program. There are 3 ways that you can access: 2 being through the conference website, and 1 going to the reporting system directly. I will walk you through here momentarily how to log in, showing you both how to get in through our website and going directly through the AC Stats program. Regarding your username, the username or the login for the program is going to be the church's GCNO number, which can be located on your apportionment statements. It's on the apportionment statements, it's reflected as area, the area number. And then the initial password is TXCUMC-1. We'll go through that here momentarily, so don't worry about it. But if you do not know your GCNO number, please contact your district administrator and they can have that. They will have that information for you, as well as you can contact our office. Tracy Blacksher and myself can assist you with that, giving you that information and assist you logging into the program. For churches who do not have access to a computer or internet, please get with your district administrator or auditor so they can assist you with submitting your report information. So I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a moment so I can bring up the internet and we can walk through how to get into the new AC Stats program. So as you can see, I am at the Texas Annual Conference website, txcumc.org. And this is what you see when you first come into the website. I'll enlarge that a little bit. There's 2 areas referenced on my sheet. You can either log in through the login or through resources. So let's try the login first. So when you come to the website, you'll click on login. And you'll see here there are different options. You have, this is for mainly employees when they log into the system: charge conference documents, data signs, data entry, salary sheets. And you see right here, AC Stats, the annual conference. This link is not live or available for you to access right now. So because we will be updating that web page for you later, and that's the October 27th date that this link will be available for you to access the AC Stats platform. Let's go back because I want you to be able to go back from the beginning screen when you enter to the log on or sign on to the web page. The other option for you to get through our webpage is through resources. So you'll see if you hover over resources, you have some options here below. Right here in the middle, the very last one, because these are in alphabetical order, you'll see login area. So you'll click on login area and it brings you back to that web page. And so again, once that's available for you to access the program, you will be able to do so through here. Or you can go directly to the AC Stats platform, and by typing in the web address stats.gcfa.org. And you see here, here's where you would input your GCNO number. So that's your login. And I have a test church that we'll go ahead and try. So you'll put in that 6-digit number, and then you'll put in that temporary password, which is TXCUMC hyphen and the number 1. And you'll click login. So when you log in, you will see here that it's bringing you into your church identification or registration. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different, because in the Ezra system, you input your GCNO number and password, and you had to share that password. Well, here, each person, rather the pastor, church administrator, or finance manager, can create their own user ID. And so basically, you will see if you had previously registered yourself, you would see your name listed here, but if not, you will just simply click on I'm not listed. So I will click on I'm not listed and go ahead and complete the information. And then you will you'll fill in your first name, last name, email address that you want to utilize. You can only use one email. You cannot duplicate an email address. So if the church has a general email address, you will need to create your own. And then you just identify your position. So pastor, church treasurer, financial secretary, church secretary, administrative assistant, or other. So I'm gonna select myself as a church treasurer, and then you can input your phone number. You don't necessarily have to complete your address information, but it is recommended that you go ahead and do so. And then you can select a password of your choosing. You'll see down here that the password must be at least 8 characters long with at least 1 letter, 1 number, and 1 special character. So that's why you would typically, our temporary password was just TXCUMC and the number 1, but you'll see that's why we added the hyphen. Okay, so now I've completed all my information, so I'll go ahead and register with my local church. And it'll let you know you have successfully registered, and then it'll bring you into your church. Now I'm gonna go ahead and log back out so we can look at my profile. So you see, now that I've registered myself, when I come in, log into the system, that's putting in your GCNO number and password, the temporary password. You come into the system and your church information is there, the test church, and then here's me. So all I would do at this time is select this is me. But if I'm not listed here, so that's adding a new user or a different user, you can go ahead and click that I'm not listed, and then you would complete this information again. But since this is me and I'm here, I'm gonna go ahead and click this is me. When you first come into the program, just wanna identify a few items. you see here the church detail. So that's the page that we're on, and that's the first selection here. And so you would need to come in and make sure you won't be able to edit anything on this page. So just review it. And if any information on this page is incorrect, please either email myself or at that financials@txcumc.org or your district administrator. Either one of us can update this information, but we've sent this information to the district assistants, and they are making sure that everything in the system is correct and current. And then the other option that you can select is annual statistics, which is basically your report. So you have two ways. So I'll go back to the local church detail, which is this is the default screen when you first get in the system. You can either click the annual statistics or annual report down here at the bottom to get to the reporting screen. And you will also notice down here at the very bottom, your status. So it's letting you know that your report has not been submitted. So say, for instance, someone else is filling out the report and they go ahead and submit it by accident. You can always find that information right down here, and it's only going to give you the most recent information on your church. Okay, so I will go ahead and pause to see if we have any questions before moving forward.
We have one question. We'll make that two questions. First of all, one person asked, Rochelle, can we get registered and set up before October 27th?
No, you will not have access to the system until November 1st, unfortunately, because we are correcting information still, and they do need to, GCFA is still uploading last year's information. We're asking everybody to hold off and wait till all that information has been done before you get into the system.
Okay, good deal. A second question. Is there access to a blank report that we can use to print as we are obtaining information?
Yes, there will be a blank report on the website. So when that AC Stats link become available on our website, that's a part of the documentation that will be available to you. I know how important it is when it's going through different people to have that paper form available to you so that you can complete that information. Maybe only the church administrator is going to input it in the system, but it has to go through several other people to get the data that you need.
And
but yes, that will be available.
Okay, super. And speaking of other people working on it, the next question, can more than one staff person be entering information at the same time?
They can. So that's the useful thing about the different users. So when you go in as a user, you can be working in it as well as others. So because you're working under your user ID, and we have been told that it should not impact anything. So I'm just going by what GCFA has told us. Unfortunately, we haven't had the pleasure of testing it out with multiple people being in a record at one time. But if you run across that problem, please let us know so we can let them know. But as far as we know, yes, multiple people can be in at the same time.
Perfect. And one more question in the chat. Does everyone have the same temporary password?
Yes, everyone has the same temporary password. And the reason why we feel secure with that is because everyone has a different GCNO number. So unless you have access to another church's information, you shouldn't have a problem with that. Now we can change it. So if there's a user in there that shouldn't be in there when you go in, and you notice that, you can always contact our office and we can adjust that password. But so everyone else is able to come in, able to access it at the beginning of the year, we do have to wipe all the old passwords out and reset it.
Good deal. Okay, one more question. This one came in chat and Q&A. Will last year's report be available on the new system? Will the previous year's data be shown?
And it should be. That's what we're waiting on. They're still loading that information, believe it or not. This is the problem that we ran into last year, where we weren't able to utilize this program because they were still inputting information from annual conferences. So we have 53 annual conferences. I'm sorry, 53 annual conferences. So and each of them have a good number, hundreds of churches. So understand that them uploading the information, making sure it's accurate, is a process. When this information, they require any corrections by the end of July. So not everybody adheres to those deadlines. So they're trying to make sure that everyone information transfers over correctly.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions we have right now. Thank you, Rochelle.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I will go ahead and go through the report. I'm going to log in as myself, because as you see that the report is not available to enter information. So the only way for you to see the information being entered is if I go into it. So let me get logged in, and then I will share my screen here momentarily. All right. Okay. So here you have a couple of things that I just want to make sure that when you get into the reporting system that you just keep an eye out for. First, you'll see here, it'll say AC Stats Texas. So that's identifying our conference, and it has the year 2022. However, it should change or reflect the year that you're reporting in each year. But to the right of your screen, you'll see the managing year. So you always want to make sure that you're in the current managing year. In Ezra, we were able to lock in the year and you couldn't adjust it. But unfortunately, we've had during our training, GCFA did notice that during the local church test that churches could change that. So please do not change the year, keep it at 2022. And then if you want to go back and look at previous years, this is a way to go back and look at other years. You see they have loaded up through 2012, should be available for you to go and look back at your church's statistical information. When you are in the program, you'll see the year for your statistical reporting, and then your church information. So your church will be right here, but also pay attention to this information. That church detail stuff will filter over into this area. So if it's incorrect on the church detail, it's going to be incorrect on your report. So we want to make sure that we get that information correct. So your church name will be displayed first, the city, then state. The pastor, the lead pastor, so associate pastors or deacons will not be listed, only the lead pastor. And then your church, conference church number, which you also see that on your statements. And then the GCFA or GCNO number. So we've said it, gone back and forth in previous years. Sometimes it says GCFA, sometimes GCNO number, but it's still the same number. Here's an instructions button right here. Please do not do not think that this is a list of instructions for you to follow. This is only instructions for the program. So it's letting you know that when you submitting information that it should be that the program only accept whole numbers. So please enter it as such. It may have you validate answers. And if you have any other questions, you have a question option. But those are the only instructions that are available through that instructions button. Then you can print your report after you've done it. Or if you, and this is for the person who asked if there was a blank report, although that will be available on our website, you can also print the report once you get into the program itself. And then you have the local church detail that's going back to that screen. to identify your information on your church and making sure that it is accurate and correct. I don't want to move too fast. So from there, again, I was able to access the report by going down and clicking on the annual report icon. When you're in the report, you will notice that you have 4 tables. And so in previous years, we've only had 3 tables. The only thing is different on the 4th table, instead of having the signature block on the 3rd table at the top, I was able to create a new table. And so the signature page is all by itself under table 4. One thing that is very important when you go into the system is you'll see this display question help. In Ezra, by each question, there was like a question mark icon to the right of it. In the new AC Stats program, that is not available. But when you turn on, click on that display question help, you will notice that each question that has a description, it will display underneath. So you don't have to hover over the question mark or click on the question mark to get a description of that question. You can just turn that on and leave that on while you're doing your report. And everywhere you see this little orangish color highlighted area, that is a description of that question. So you see here 2021 and 2022, but you also will notice that there aren't any numbers displayed under 2021 as of yet. So again, GCFA is working on that, and we hope to have that, that'll be available and uploaded by November 1st. I'll go back to the table 1. As you click on it, used to be a drop-down feature, and you would select which table that you wanted to work on. It's easier in this program because all you have to do is click on it, and it'll go to each of those tables. But also, the cool thing about this one is that you're not having to go to each table. It is a continuous report. So all you do is scroll down, and you will see that you can access the entire report just by scrolling up and down, using your cursor to scroll up and down. So I will actually go ahead and pause right here again to see if anyone has any questions before we just kind of run through the report.
We do have one question, Rochelle, that,
Okay.
and I think it's something you've already said, but maybe you could say it again more slowly. And what I can do is type it into the chat so that everyone can have that. What is the GCFA registration website address? And then after that, if you could tell us again that temporary password.
Okay. That information is, let me go back. Bear with me for one moment and I'll share my screen here. And that information is going to be on our website, but the website directly to the GCFA statistical database platform is stats.gcfa.org. And you can just type that information. You don't have to type in the HTTPS, all that information previously. If you just start typing in the stats.gcfa.org, it should work for you. And then the temporary password is TX for Texas, C for Conference, UMC for United Methodist Church, hyphen, and the number 1.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And friends, I'll also type that in the chat for those of you who want to jot it down as well. And we have one more question in the chat, actually. Is there a way to save and come back when you're working on the report?
So the report is an auto-save program. So as you type in information, the program is automatically saving it for you. So you don't have to actually save. So just be careful when you're entering in your information. Once you close out, the information that you typed in is still going to be there.
So you can come back and edit it later and it'll still be there.
edit it later.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks so much. Those are the only questions we have right now, Rochelle.
Okay. So I'll go back to sharing my screen here. This is just a sample statement, and I just wanted to identify where you can locate your GCFA or GCNO number. So on your statement, you will notice the alternate ID, that's that conference church number that should be on your report. But just underneath it, you'll see area, and this is the GCNO number. So whenever in doubt, you can refer back to your statements, or you can contact either us here at the conference office or your district auditor or administrative assistant. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the report. And so under table 1, which is primarily membership and is primary membership in the what am I thinking of? Christian formation groups and other ministries that you may have active in your church, the activity that's going on in those ministries. First, you have your professing members. Line 1, you will see a number there. So when you get into the program, you will see a number already there, a figure already there. And that's from last year's. That's what your end of year membership was. And so it'll always be the same number, what you ended with from the previous year. So that number will be there. It's a hard number. And why I say hard number is you cannot edit it. So if you have any questions about, hey, this may be wrong, or I don't think that number looks right, and you want to go back and look at your information, there are 2 lines within the report where you could correct if there was an error. To add members, you will look at number 2D, and that's to correct the previous year's reporting error. So you will input that correct number right there, or to subtract members. That's under 3C. So you would input that number right there as well. For churches who are disaffiliating, you will remove your membership on line number 3A, remove or corrected by charge conference action. So all the members that you have going with you through your disaffiliation, you would input that figure there, which should leave you at 0 on line item number 4. So if on 4 you still have 1 or 2 members, you have not cleared out your membership. So make sure that you adequately input the correct number on 3A or any other applicable areas. Line item 4, you will see here these grayed out areas. It looks like a greenish color. Those are auto summation lines. So as you enter numbers into these fields up above, it will adjust the number on line item 4. And so still within your membership, just a breakdown is ethnicity, and you have gender. 2 things here. Whatever number that you have on line item 4, that number should be the same exact number reflected on line item 5 and line item 6. So 5 and 6 are just breaking down. 5 is breaking down the ethnicity makeup of your congregation, and 6 is breaking down the gender. So those numbers should always reflect the same. But again, wherever you see these grayish areas, whatever figures you input on the lines above it is going to calculate accordingly. You will also see this warning, this value should not be 0 or blank. This also is a validation warning for if you increase a certain percentage, and our percentage threshold has always been 10%. So if your membership gender is different from the previous years by 10% rather increase or decrease amount, you will get a warning and it will ask for an explanation. You experience the same thing in Ezra, so for this program, it's the exact same. Here you have your attendance in baptism. Line item number 7 and 7A is your average worship attendance. Remember, during the pandemic, we had the worship attendance protocol. We're still following that. We know that churches are starting to gather again. However, we do understand that we're in a new day and a lot of churches are still continuing with online churches as well. So it's kind of a hybrid. You have the option to go or be online as well. Baptism information, again, you see here, there's 2 categories that have been broken down, 0 to 12 or 13 or older. And you see that kind of greenish gray shaded area. Again, that's the auto summation. So those figures that you input in those 2 line items will be calculated and reflected on line 8.
We do have a few questions if you want to pause at some point and answer a few more, Rochelle.
I can. Okay.
Thank you so much. So first of all, in the Q&A, the first question is, will the data that we have been reporting throughout the year, such as worship numbers and apportionments that already paid, be automatically entered into this report? Or similar to Ezra, will we have to manually re-enter that data?
So the only figure that you, even in Ezra, that you would have needed to input was the the vital signs. So your membership, your worship attendance and stuff like that. But we've been uploading the apportionment figures for years now into the system. So your apportionment figures will be in the system, but understand we work on a monthly basis. So we close out at the end of the month. So as you, in the middle of the month, if say for instance, we're now in the month of October, anything that you've paid this month towards your apportionments, we do not finalize that information and put it in our database until the end of the month, once we close out the month. So it's not accurate as far as day-to-day payments that you may be sending in, but it's on a monthly basis. And that information will be there. And in the report, I will show you those areas that we would be inputting. The conference will input information when we get to the table 2.
Okay, great. And then several questions on ethnicity and gender sections. One, what if we never collected ethnicity info before? How do we match line 4, 5, and 6?
Well, unfortunately, the only way you can do is kind of guesstimate what you feel like the makeup of your congregation is. So if they're primarily African American or Hispanic or Anglo, you would make sure that your numbers kind of reflect that. But only thing I can suggest is that you guesstimate. I'm sure that you're not going around and saying, what are you? What are you? What are you? But, just kind of try to guess what's the makeup of your congregation.
And along those same lines, a question, I don't see a place for unknown ethnicity.
Unfortunately, we do not have that option available. We have a multiracial. That's the only kind of unknown or something like that that's available out there on the program.
And then we have several questions from churches who are disaffiliating. One question is, if your church is disaffiliating, but some members do not want to leave the UMC and will be assigned to the district, how should that number be recorded, or should they? And Rochelle, I think I can answer that question. I almost interjected when you were talking about it before, because we want to make sure, actually in Robert's current center, the Center for Leadership Formation here in the Texas Annual Conference, they have asked all districts to create a general membership roll. The discipline allows you to do this. So if there are members of your church who do not want to be automatically disaffiliated with your church, then they can be placed on the general membership roll. Of course, our hope is that they'll join another United Methodist church, but if they haven't yet made that decision, the discipline allows them to sort of park their membership at the district level until the time that they've chosen that new church home. Of course, our greatest hope is that all churches will stay together, either in the UMC or in another denomination or affiliation. But we understand that sometimes that's not possible. So if there are members of your church that have moved their membership to that district membership role, they are no longer members of your church. So my understanding is that they should not be recording that in the end of your report. Is that correct, Rochelle?
Correct. So the members that are moving with you, you will put under that 3A, remove or correct. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can talk about it and I can show you. So here under 3A, those members that are going with you, you would put here under remove or corrected by charge conference action. But say, for instance, those members are remaining United Methodist church members and they're going to that district role, but you're still trying to get to 0. You will put them here under 3D, removed by transfer to other United Methodist churches. We don't know which church as of yet, but they're staying within the denomination. And then underneath you have removed by transfer to other denomination. You can identify those members that are just leaving that you know of that are leaving the United Methodist Church. Or simply, if you don't know, there's always withdrawn. So you can identify those members that you're not sure of where they're going as withdrawn. I hope that answers that question.
Great. And let me interject this question right now in the chat, which also refers to disaffiliating churches and membership at 0. If you are disaffiliating and membership is 0, shouldn't those lines also be 0, even though the warning says that should not be 0 or blank? They should ignore that warning and put in 0, correct?
Yes. So even when you get that warning, go ahead and type in disaffiliating, as simple as that, or disaffiliated. So once you get that warning, the report, it shouldn't hinder you from saving or submitting your report just because you did not input an explanation, but go ahead and just insert disaffiliating or disaffiliated.
Great. Here's another question for you, Rochelle. Will we be required to fill out the fund balance report and the annual report of the Committee on Finance in addition to the AC Stats report?
So the fund report, I mean, they don't come through our office. From my understanding, they go through the district. So that's not something that's required here. So please ask your district administrator regarding the funding report.
Yeah, I think both of those reports are due at the annual church conference. And so, yes, your district office would be a great place to ask that. I thought so, Rochelle. Thank you so much. Okay, another question for you. Will the 2021 information be in the new system? I think you've already answered this, but maybe you could repeat it. Previously, we could run a blank report showing a column with the previous year's reporting and then blanks to fill in the new year.
Yes, again, GCFA is working on that, getting this information uploaded in the system. Unfortunately, I tried to access Ezra because I was trying to go back and get some information. The Ezra reports are even no longer available. So we're trusting that they're going to they promised us they would get this information in. They asked the different conferences when we needed a drop dead date that we needed it by. And we said by the end of October, mid to the end of October, most people said. So we're hoping that they're going to have it in the AC Stats program by November 1st.
Great. Just 2 more questions, Rochelle. If a church is disaffiliating, would they need to continue with the membership part of the report?
Going beyond, for instance, once you get past the ethnicity and gender, no, actually you don't. I mean, you're basically just zeroing out your membership. If you want to report the information, you're more than welcome to, just to say what was the status of your church before departing the United Methodist Church. But if not, no, it's not required of you to do so.
Okay, great. And one more question. Our minister baptized a person who has not joined our church. How do we report her?
Well, if they're not a professing member, you don't include them within your membership. So, excuse me. So you can't record them as a member until they're officially a member.
Right. I think that is also something you might be required to do for church conference, but we don't require it for annual conference stats, correct?
Right.
Okay, great. That's all I've got at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I will resume sharing my screen and where we stopped off. I think we were here at the Christian formation groups. Again, you just would input your information. I'm just going to go scroll through these specialty groups or specialty ministry groups. Classes, VBS, and other, you will report that information within this section. And each of them have a header. So if you're unsure where you are, you can always look at the bold green header. United Methodist Men, how many members, how many projects that was paid for, United Methodist Women, and then missions. And so that'll be the end of table 1. I will pause right here to see if anybody has any questions regarding table 1. Like I said, table 1 is primarily membership. So it's just identifying the different groups and activities that you have within your congregation. Do we have any other questions?
I think you've answered everything that's in the Q&A and in the chat at this time, Rochelle. Thank you.
Cool. So I'll move on. I'll share my screen again and I'll move on to table 2. And table 2 is your assets and expenditures. So at the top of table 2, you have your facility information, the market value of your facility and other assets. Then your debt, indebtedness, you'll report that information just underneath. Then we come to apportionments. And like I said, we have those specific dates under the important dates that we talked about earlier, that we're going to upload your apportionment information. So the goal now is by October 31st, we'll import your apportionments as they are, which will be your receipts through September 30th, which is last month, but we're currently working in the October month. And then on November 3rd, we will upload the receipts received through October 31st. So here you see 2 line items for each apportionment, because the GCFA form actually only asks for the amount apportioned and amount paid, but we break it down in our report so you can look at your statement, see your information, and reflect, make sure that it is accurate on your report. Now understand that the reporting system is whole dollars, so therefore we have rounded up. The system is going to round up or round down those figures, those monetary receipts received based upon whatever the cents is. So if it's 1 cent to 49 cents, it'll stay at that whole number, or it'll round up if it's 50 cents to 99 cents applied to that, whatever that line item is. So you see these 2 icons here right next to the apportionment. One says conference, CONF for conference, and the other one says apportionment. So the yellow one that says that's CONF for conference means that the conference is going to input this number. Now, these line items are edible. So in the event on report day, you're bringing in money and you want your report to reflect that you brought in the final payment or contributions, you can edit these lines, but understand that the conference is going to be uploading those numbers according to what we received. And your statement is a reflection of what we received. So we will, each of these line items, you have the general and jurisdictional apportionments. You can see we'll be uploading that information as well as the conference apportionments. You'll see right here, under the Center for Leadership Formation, you know, we changed those that through the strategic mapping, those activities did change. So we just want to identify that if you're looking at previous year's numbers, you're going to see the difference here. When you see that lump sum, you'll see where it came from, because your statement is not going to reflect the same from 2021 to 2022. So there you have all of your conference apportionments identified. And down here at the bottom, line 28A is the total amount that you were apportioned. And then 28B is the amount that you sent into the conference office. And that's only for apportionments. Then you come down to your fair share goals. And again, same thing, everything that you sent through the conference office is reflected and will be uploaded. And then on line 28C, you have the total amount apportioned. 28D is the total amount that you paid. I'll pause right here to see if we have any questions before I move on to the districts. Carol?
There's just one question, Rochelle, and again, it's from a church that may be disaffiliating. If we are disaffiliating, do we need to report assets as well, in addition to membership?
So again, if that is totally up to you to report that information. I mean, you can go ahead and reflect your church as it was prior to you disaffiliating, but if you choose not to and prefer not to, you don't have to. So beyond that membership, withdrawing your membership and zeroing out your membership, you do not have to report anything beyond that point. Now, your apportionments will be uploaded here, but just for historical purposes and for us to know, we do ask that you do go ahead and complete the report fully. But unfortunately, we can't twist your arm and make you do so.
Thank you, Rochelle. That's all we've got right now.
Cool. Okay, going back to, we left off at the fair share goals. So we'll start with the district apportionments. Your districts are going to be sending us their information as well. So on November 1st, you may not see reflected here what you paid the district, but you will see what the district has apportioned you. But they are going to start sending us those figures, and we'll continue to upload that information on our scheduled dates and input it in the reporting system. And then you have UMC given, which is all those other special gifts that you send in that goes to the denomination and not necessarily through to the annual conference. You just sent those proceeds through the annual conference. So that's that Encore, the disaster relief, and stuff like that will go into this area. The Mahawa Hospital, those special advanced specials that you pay go on line 30. And then you have some other special UMC, the United Methodist Church, gives, like the Youth Service Fund. I'm sorry, Special Sundays, the Human Resources Encore Sunday, which was formerly One Great Hour Sharing, Peace with Justice, Native American Sundays, World Communion, and Student. Those special Sunday offerings, I think a lot of you call them communion rail offerings. So you will report those on these two line items, the UMC given and special Sunday. One other thing I want to identify is the other benevolent sent to the treasurer office. Now that's like the TAC disaster when we're collecting, like currently we're collecting for the Hurricane Ian relief. Figures like those will go on line 33, but you don't have to worry about that because we'll import that information. But one thing I do want to, one figure that you will see on this line is the fair share goals. All except for the conference advance special, you'll see those numbers, those figures also reflected under this other benevolence. And the reason why is because the conference advance special is a general church. You have to understand, we're taking a general church report and we've kind of making it into our own. So it reflects what not only what our churches would like to see when they're entering their information, but what questions that we as a conference may have as well. And then we have the conference special offerings, which is like Golden Cross, the Methodist Retirement Home. All that information would be on our website to identify those special items. So you'll know if you're entering that information because you brought in proceeds on a report day, you can add those to whatever number that's already there. And that is all of the special offering. And one last given on under table 2 is the direct giving. And this is for things that you may have sent to a special cause. And you have 2 options here. You have one, a United Methodist cause or a non-United Methodist. And what do they mean? If you sent money to Encore directly, so it didn't come through the conference office, so we have no way of knowing what you've submitted to Encore directly. So we're not going to upload that information to on your behalf into the report because we're unaware of it. Line 36 is where you will report that information. And then non-United Methodist causes are charities that you may be contributing to. Line 37 is where you will report that information. I'm going to pause again to see if we have any questions out there.
No questions, Rochelle. No questions. You're doing great.
All right. Okay, so I'll start back sharing my screen and we'll get into the pastors, the clergy information. So you have pensions and health. Of course, you report the total direct paid and on non-apportioned clergy pensions or other non-health benefits. So this is your pensions line, and anything direct paid, meaning you all know that we do the draft from the church. So that's the information that you would reflect here. You have an apportionment line item for medical benefits. You no longer have an apportionment item for pensions, but if you did, you would not reflect those figures here. Right underneath line 39 is for the health benefits. Again, anything that the church has paid on behalf of their clergy for health benefits, you will report that figure here. Then you have your clergy compensation. Now, this is slightly different. This is the only thing that's slightly different as far as numerical order on the report. So I do want to make sure that I spend a little time here, and if you have any questions, please ask. You will see here that there are 3 categories for base compensation. 40A is the senior pastor or lead pastor. 41A is for the associate pastor compensation, and we're solely just talking about compensation. And then 42 is for an appointed deacon. Well, you'll notice right underneath you have the housing benefits. So you'll see those same numbers, but a different letter reflected just behind it. So for 40B, that's for the housing and utility allowance paid to or for the pastor, the senior pastor or lead pastor. 41B is housing related allowances or utilities paid to or for the associate pastor. And then 42B, the housing benefits paid to or for any deacons not included in 40B or 41B. Before I go on, I just want to make sure that everybody is clear that, and I'll pause for a second, that you do understand that there are 3 categories as far as reporting compensation and housing. And so 40 for the senior pastor, 41 for any associate pastors, 42 for any deacons.
And we do have a couple of questions. If you, since you're paused, Rochelle, if you'd like to go ahead and take them.
Okay.
So one person is asking about line 33. Is that for benevolences to outside individuals or just benevolences to outside organizations?
No, those are for benevolence to conference, United Methodist Conference gives. So for instance, Emerging Leaders is a Texas Annual Conference special project that we have going on internally. So that's those other benevolence. You have the Providence Place, which is the children's home in San Antonio, which was formerly and also Methodist Waco. That would be under that category. We'll get to the activity list. I'll actually go ahead and show that. Give me a second. Let me bring that up. I'm going to share my screen again, Carol.
Great.
Okay, so you see here, we have this activity list that's going to be on our website. So here you can identify which fund or activity that you've maybe sent contributions to, and where it will be reflected exactly on the report. So if you see here 33, you see those different campaigns, Emerging Leaders, Lakeview Special Gifts. Now this is different from the Fair Share Goal. That's the scholarship, the camp scholarship that you give to. This is just a special gift that you may want to give Lakeview. The Methodist Home, Providence Place, the TAC Disaster Relief, We Love All God's Children, Wiley College Scholarship. So all those are flood buckets that you may pay Christine directly at the Mission Center. So all those items are other gifts. Also, you have your Fair Share Goals. Remember, I spoke about that, the Oklahoma Indian Mission, Justice for All Immigrants, which was formerly Justice for All for Our Neighbors, the Lakeview Summer Camp Scholarship and Texas Methodist Scholarship. Again, those are special Texas Annual Conference projects and ministries that we have going on that the GCFA report considers other benevolence. So all those line items are going to go under that 33. I hope that answers your question.
That's great, Rochelle. Thank you. And we have one more question unrelated to that one. This is from a church which may be disaffiliating, and they're asking, will salary and benefit numbers be required?
Okay, so again, just like with beyond the withdrawing your membership, we encourage you to go ahead and submit the report as you usually would and fill it out completely. But if the church prefers to and zeroing out their membership because they're disaffiliating, then they don't have to, you're not required to complete the report. We're just strongly encouraging that you do.
And let me just add one note to that, friends. Your district office may require that information. Some district superintendents are requiring a regular charge conference with salary sheets and benefit information for clergy. We in the treasurer's office are not requiring, and benefits office are not requiring salary sheets for clergy who are withdrawing. Now, if you are there, in the rare case that you might be disaffiliating, but a United Methodist pastor may continue serving for a short while in your congregation just for continuity. In that case, we would need for you to complete the salary sheet. and the benefits, but only in that case. So I know it's a confusing time for all of us. We're figuring this out, but do comply with whatever your district superintendent requests on that. But if all of your clergy are withdrawing, then that information will not be required by us. Hope that's helpful. Okay, Rochelle, I think that's all. Oops, no, we have another question. No, that was it. That's all we've got.
Okay. Okay, well, I will continue on going through the report. Let me get back to my screen. And I think we stopped here at the housing benefits. So then you have your other benefits. Other benefits and other cash allowances is all lumped together. Excuse me. Excuse me, as one. So all your total accountable reimbursable pay for your senior pastors, associate pastors, or deacons is all listed on 43, and the other cash allowances, you would identify that those proceeds on line 44. Then just underneath, you have your staff, any employees. You're reporting the information on your employees. You would put on line 45. Excuse me, I need to drink some water. Excuse me one moment. Okay, hopefully I can get through this. Okay,
Rochelle, while we're paused, I think this is back on line 37. We have one more question in the chat. Do you report benevolences sent to non-UMC individuals and organizations? Wouldn't that be on that line 37? Is that correct?
Yes, that will be on line 37.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. You've been talking a lot. You're doing well.
Okay, so I'll go back in. My just got something in my throat and I can't clear it. So it's just itchy. So excuse me, pardon me. I do apologize. So next we're in the section of operations and programs. Of course, these two line items are important. So these are, I don't think that it has it here. I don't see the validation, but these two should be, if you are an active congregation, on line 46, your church program expenses, there should be a figure there. And if you put input 0, you should get an error, a validation error. I have to look back in the program and see why that's not reflecting, but it is a validation. Same with the operation expenses. There should be a validation warning that you have to enter a number more than 0 on this line item. Then you have your debts and capital payments on line 48. You would report any outstanding loans, sorry, not outstanding, any loans amounts that you have paid in 2022, in the year 2022. You don't want to report your balance or anything on this line item, only what you've paid out for this current fiscal year. On line 49, any capital improvements, you will report that on this line, and there's actually going to be a breakout. I must have this line inactive, but there should be a 49A and B. Excuse me, here. And so I'll go into the report and see why it's not reflecting. It may be an error. More than likely it's an error on my part that I don't have it active. But you would report on line 49A any amounts that you paid out that were from your operating budget. 49B would be any special. So if you received like an insurance check or something like that, or you've been collecting over the years for a capital campaign for this very purpose, that's where you were reported on 49B. So I do apologize about that in advance, that's not being reflected here on this report, but we will get it corrected, and it will be in the instructions to highlight. And then on line 50, you'll see again that, excuse me, that greenish grayed out area And so in previous years, we've allowed the churches to input their grand total. This program, they've taken that away and it's going to calculate it for you. But we do ask that you take a look at that, whatever that final number is, to make sure it matches your records as well. And if you do see a discrepancy, to please contact the conference office to see why that's not calculated correctly. That's the end of table 2. I'll go ahead and pause to see if we have any questions, Carol.
Yes, we do have a couple of questions for Shell. First of all, are repayments to TMF for other organizations for COVID payroll assistance included under the debt section?
No. Wait, repeat that question for me again.
Are repayments to TMF or other organizations for COVID payroll assistance included under the debt section?
No, it is not included. A repayment, I'm not sure what that would be. Could I get a little bit more clarification? Well, let's talk offline and
Okay.
see, because I'm not sure what that is. So
Okay.
just shoot us an email.
I'll ask for more clarification offline. There you go. One more question on this pertains to line 49B, Rochelle.
Uh-huh.
Will that be where we got dollars from voting use of our building?
I'm sorry.
I think they received money for building use. Would that be where they would put that money when they received money for building use?
No, because it's not this table 2 is not an income table. So these are all proceeds that you've spent, so expended. So table 2 is primarily just an expenditure area. Table 3 is income. So there is an area under table 3 to report that type of information. But table 2 is simply your identifying your assets and any expenditures from the church.
So helpful. That's all we have right now, Rochelle.
Okay. So we'll move on to table 3. Let me share my screen. And so just like the last question asked, where you would identify income that you received is under table 3. So 51, line 51 is where you're identifying number of households given to your local church. So you would input that number. So say for instance, if you have pledge cards or you know your individuals who are contributors throughout the year, you will go ahead and input that number in individuals here. Next, you have your budget spending plan. So it just goes through several different categories. So amount received through pledges or non-pledges but identified givers. Amounts received through unidentified givers. And if you have any question as who those identified or unidentified givers are, remember just underneath the report, as long as you have turned on the display for question help, right up here, you will see all that information that will assist you in completing these areas. Amounts received from interest and dividends transferred from liquid assets, the sale of church assets, amount received through building use fees, contribution, and rentals. So that question that was just asked, this is where you would input those rental fees that you collected. And then amounts received through fundraisers or other resources will be reported here. And so you do have line 52, which is the total income for annual budget spending plan. Then you'll come down to your capital campaigns and other designated projects. So you have your capital campaign, your memorial endowments and bequests, funds from other sources or projects, including the sale of buildings, other buildings outside of your church building. And amounts received for special Sunday, general advance special, world service specials, or other forms of directed benevolent charitable giving. So you will reflect those proceeds received from your congregants here. And then the total income from designated causes, including capital campaign and other special projects, is reflected on line, the total is reflected on line 53. And then you have your other sources and connectional funds. Equitable compensation received by church for pastor. You'll reflect that here. And advanced special apportionment and connectional funds received by church. Here, for example, we have our transformation group that you may be receiving support from the annual conference. This is where you would reflect those proceeds that you receive. Now, I do get a report at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year for the previous year. So if you do not reflect that pastoral support that you're receiving or church support that you're receiving, I will call you and ask you, our office will be in contact with you to see, why our numbers vary or differ. So we do follow up on that as well. And then you have other grants and financial support from institutional sources. So you will reflect that on line 54C, and then you have your total support from other institutions reflected on line 54. And then the grand total for all your income will calculate here on line 55. And before I go to the last two sections that we have, I will go ahead and pause to see if we have any questions.
We just have a couple of questions, Rochelle, but thank you for pausing to hear those. And these are about specific line items. So first of all, 49B, could you clarify what should be included in 49B?
49B is simply just those special or one-time payments that you may have received from an outside source. So say, for instance, if you're doing a 5-year capital campaign and in the year 2022, your building that you had or whatever you were collecting for is complete. And so you expended those proceeds. It's not something that you're guaranteed to have available to expend on a year-to-year basis. So we consider it like those one-time things. So that's why we say capital campaign, because it's specific, or an insurance payment. Or say, for instance, you have one church member that will say, hey, I want to help build out or renovate the children's wing or something like that. You're not anticipating that they will give you those proceeds year after year. They're only giving it to you this one time. So because these figures do go into calculating your apportionments, we don't want them to skew your outcome. So we can always go back and identify, hey, they had a large number this year specifically because they did something special this one time. Or if you have an insurance payment that come in, is to repair something, you're only going to expend those funds this one time and receive those proceeds from an outside source.
Thanks, Rochelle. This one pertains to 53C. And this participant asked, they apparently take special gifts as special offerings on Easter and Christmas. Should these be included in that line item, 53C?
I think they're referring to 53D.
Okay.
Is what they're saying. Amounts received for special Sundays. Special Sundays are identified by the general church and by the annual conference. I would have to look at the journal to show where we have them, but those are identified. So no, Easter Sunday is not one that would be reflected under here. I'm trying to see if there's an other category. That would be more so under 52G, amount received through fundraisers or other sources, other special fundraisers, but not under the designated project. No.
Okay, good deal. A question, a couple more questions about specific line items. Lines 54 are confusing for one participant. For example, they've received money from the conference for their upper room ministry, but they're not clear if it's for salary or otherwise, and how would they know? Can you offer any guidance on 54?
So advanced special apportioned and connectional funds received by church. I would have to, I mean, I know I'm not familiar with upper room gifts or anything like that. So I would say that would go under grants. Let me look into it just by knowing the report itself.
I'll ask the participant to email you directly. How about that? Perfect. And a couple of more, if a church receives money from the conference office for a minister, should it go on line 54B?
Yes.
Okay, that's correct. Wonderful. And where would a participant report employee retention credit received? Do you know?
No, I would have to look into that one.
Okay, I'll ask that participant to email you directly. And I think that's all we have right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll move on, and we're nearing the end, so we're almost there. Next, we have under table 3, the special data collection items. So these are conference questions that we've added to the GCFA report. So these are specific to our annual conference. We asked, like, is the church is incorporated? And this is another way to get that EIN number from a church. We do hope that the churches have submitted that information or put that on their report. But if they didn't, this is another area that we'll go in and see if they put their chartered number here on line 57. So that way we can input the information, because a lot of times the churches just miss the information in the earlier part of the reporting. So it's just a check and balance type question. Enter the year your church was founded. You enter the 4-digit year. So for example, 1968 or 2022. Next question, is there a copy of the church properties? Don't have deed on there, but we're looking for if you have access to a copy of the church's deed on their properties accessible, or not necessarily if you have it on you, but can you access it, or can someone access it? And then you have the hands-on mission activity. I think this is a question that churches typically report through the vital signs. And then we have 2 really important questions that we're trying to hone in on. Does the church have a safe sanctuary policy in place? They were in a 0 if no, 1 if yes. And then if so, when was the last time you updated your policy? It's something that our Safe Sanctuary Committee is going to be looking at, or has been looking at, and we're just trying to see where our churches stand. Then we'll move on to the information related to disaster. And this just goes through various areas that you may have received money from. Line 62 will sum that, but you can read through each of them to identify areas where you may have received proceeds from. And then if your church acted as a shelter, or did they provide food and clothing or other items to other shelters? Then you have your expenditure section. So 62 and 63, or 62 is your income. 63, the D through G is identify any expenditures that you may have had. So on line 63, the total expenditures just capture whatever you inputted on line 63C through 63G. And then that's the end of the report. And at the bottom, you can see here table 4, where we ask for the pastor's signature or the financial representative signature, and or the financial representative signature. And I'm going to stop right there, because that's the end. That's the report in itself.
Wonderful. And I think all the questions have been answered, both in Q&A and in the chat. Friends, I just posted Rochelle's email address in the chat in case you're talking among yourselves after this webinar, or you're actually completing the report and you have additional questions that your district auditor can't ask. And remember that your district auditors were trained by Rochelle yesterday. So, and they're really good at this. So don't hesitate to ask them your questions as well. And one more thing in the Q&A said, thank you, Rochelle. And in the chat, great job, Rochelle. I totally agree. Wonderful training, Rochelle. We're so grateful for your ministry. All of you, thank you for staying with us. We know this was a long training. It's a new system and we wanted you to be comfortable with it. Again, we were recording this, and this, along with all the handouts and the other information that Rochelle mentioned, will be on our website in late October. And we hope everything will be live and ready for you to begin working November 1. Any last words or comments, Rochelle?
I did have like 2 more slides to go through on the report.
Okay.
And we'll go through those pretty quickly and then identify who to contact who's your district auditor and who to contact at the district as well.
Perfect. So helpful.
So here we have the do's and the don'ts. Here first I list to please enter the church's IRS identification number. This information is necessary whenever you call me and say, hey, I need a group ruling letter, and you can retrieve those actually instantly through GCFA. And as long as you've reported the information on the report, when you go to their website, all you do is you put in your EIN number or input your EIN number, your contact information, where you want that letter to be sent to, and then you can print it out immediately. So it's very helpful. It's also helpful for donation websites like Amazon Smile or GuideStar through the denomination. So that number serves more than one purpose. So it is important for you to provide that. All figures are whole numbers. Cells are not formatted for decimals or fractions. So please remember that when you're inputting your information. Please use your conference apportionment sheet to verify data in sections 28 through 30 and 35. That's just identifying what you've sent through the conference office. Use your district apportionment statement to verify the data in section or on line 29. So again, we just want to make sure that the information that we do have is accurate. So we want you to also look at that information as well. And then verify the auto summation line. So remember those grayed out areas where the program is automatically calculating the data that you input. So just verify that the bottom line number is correct. And then be observant of the validation warnings. So remember, we do have in place mostly on the auto summation lines, if those numbers increase or decrease by more than 10%, then there will be a warning. And we ask that you just put a simple explanation just to let us know. That way we're not calling you or anything. And the reason why we do this stuff is that when the apportionments are calculated, we go to those areas that may skew those numbers. So we want to be able to identify, and if you've given us an explanation, we understand we may be able to explain the purpose of that. And then finally, on the do's and don'ts, new this year is the fact that the signature page is on table 4. And then we do ask that the clergy do sign off on that most definitely. And if there's a financial share, to have them sign off on it as well. Then common errors. Just be careful when you're entering your information that you are on the line that it's intended for. Just go back and proofread. Reporting the total loan amount on line 48. Remember to only report the amount that you pay towards your loan for the calendar year. Also, reporting the total amount of monies collected for improvements alone on line 48A. This is where I identify the difference between line 48A and 49B. So just making sure that you input those figures on the correct line. And then lastly, including, be sure to not to include the expenditures for other ministries, ongoing ministries. So say, for instance, if it's a daycare or a food bank, you want to make sure that the figures that you are reporting on table 2 regarding your church and operational, that it is simply for your church worship, and any of those other income source or expenditure source projects that the church is doing, that you do not include them in your figures. And then finally, here are your district auditors and administrators. We will have this slide available for you to refer back to. It's their email address and the phone number that you can reach them at. And then also the conference office representatives that you can contact should you have any questions. And that's the end. So I'll stop to see if we have any more questions.
Lots of thanks and gratitude, Rochelle, for a wonderful job done. And friends, remember, everything will be on our website by October 27th. If you have additional questions, I posted Rochelle's email in the chat. If you missed that, feel free to email either one of us through the website. We're happy to help you. We're grateful for your time today. We'll be asking God's blessings on you as you complete this for this new report, and we hope it goes smoothly. Any other words, Rochelle?
No, that's it. Looking forward to assisting you as usual. Our office is always here. The Center for Connectional Resources is always here to answer any questions that you may have. So we're here to help. And we thank you for going through this process. It's very helpful to us to have people who are willing to do it. So we do appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Again, report days are January 10th and 11th, and your district office has the exact date for your district. And we look forward to receiving this great ministry information. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.